When it comes to mid-sized pickup trucks, it's pretty hard to beat the overall package of the Toyota Tacoma. This model has been in America since 1995, and since then it's been one of the best-selling pickup trucks, small pickup trucks in the States, with Toyota selling about 250,000 units every year. Now for 2024, Toyota is responding to all the new competition in this space with a fully redesigned version of the Tacoma. This right here is a 2024 Tacoma TRD Sport, and it's a comprehensive redesign, meaning we have an all-new frame, all new powertrains, new styling on the outside, and a fully redesigned interior with one of the biggest touchscreens in the segment. So as you can see this week, we're actually out here in Malibu, California to drive the all-new 2024 Tacoma, and the big question I want answered, has Toyota managed to once again raise the mid-size truck bar with this all-new fourth generation? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the all-new styling for this fourth generation Tacoma, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Because unlike the previous generation, which offered a choice of a 4-cylinder or a V6 engine, Toyota has discontinued the V6. That's right, Toyota is moving away from V6 engines finally, and in its place basically are two versions of a 2.4-liter turbocharged gasoline and port injection 4-cylinder engine. Now this engine, you guys have seen this engine before in variations of like the Toyota Crown, the Toyota Highlander, the Toyota Grand Highlander, and some Lexus products. It's the company's 2.4-liter direct injection turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Now there's 3 different states of tune for this Tacoma here. Now there's also an iForce Max, it's a hybrid, but this model that we're showing you here is the TRD Sport with the 8-speed auto, which means it's been tuned to make 278 horsepower, which is actually the same horsepower as the old 3.5-liter V6. However, this model here makes 317 pound-feet of torque. That's a whopping nearly 70 more pound-feet of torque versus the old V6. And if you guys remember on my reviews on the older generation Tacoma, I didn't really like that V6. It was very rev happy. It didn't have a lot of low-end torque. And we also have a new 8-speed automatic transmission, which should fix the issues that I had with the 6-speed auto. Now, if you guys go for the base SR, there's basically this version of the engine making 228 horsepower, so I suspect it has less boost. That's still a lot more horsepower versus the 159 in the old 2.7-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. And then if you guys want a 6-speed manual, you can actually get a 6-speed on something like this TRD Sport. It drops the power to 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Sadly, we are not going to be able to drive the iForce Max hybrid powertrain. Toyota says that that engine will be available for us to drive sometime in the early spring of next year. But regardless, this engine here, Toyota doesn't claim a 0 to 60 time. We'll test it out when we get this vehicle out on the road. Fuel economy is also not bad. This model here is rated at 19 in the city, 23 on the highway, around 20 to 21 mpg combined. The base engine, the SR5, if you get it with 2-wheel drive, Toyota says is as good as 21-26. So really improved fuel economy figures. We don't know the fuel economy figures yet of the hybrid, but I suspect it'll probably be closer to the mid 20 mpg mark. And then in terms of the towing capacity, Tacomas are rated to tow a maximum of 6,500 pounds. So that's not class leading, but it should be enough to get the job done for most Tacoma owners. In terms of the curb weight, this is a new platform. It shares it with the Tundra and the Sequoia, of course. As this truck sits, it weighs in at around 4,700 pounds. It's a little bit heavier, around 200 pounds heavier than the previous generation, and payload capacity ranges from about 1,300 pounds all the way up to 1,700 pounds, depending, of course, on the trim and the cab configuration. But let's go ahead and close up this hood here, which, as you can see, is supported by a prop rod, and show you guys the rest of the exterior styling. Now, Toyota offers a choice of 8 different trims. We won't be able to drive, of course, the top trims, which is the Trail Hunter and the TRD Pro, but this model here is a nice mid-trim that's more oriented for the street. It's a TRD Sport trim level. You can see it's painted in this really attractive shade of blue crushed metallic. It's one of my favorite blues that Toyota does. And you can also see for the front fascia, if you have the old Tacoma, the previous generation, it looks more like an evolutionary change, but if you park this next to the old model or a new Tundra, you can see Toyota has borrowed a lot of the Tundra's styling elements here. We have the newest Toyota corporate grille here with the Toyota logo. Other trims might spell out Toyota along the actual grille as part of a heritage look. You can see the headlights are LEDs, LED low and high beams. However, the lower trims like this model here will have an incandescent design for the turn signals. Only the Limited has the full LED headlights, which have a sequential turn signal. I believe the TRD Pro and Trail Hunter will also have them as well. Down here you can see there are some fake grille openings. The LED fog lights here are also present, and they definitely finish off the look. Down here you can see there's this really hideous front air dam. Now, Toyota says on the off-road versions of the truck, they're actually going to remove that front air dam from the factory, but they are removed easily with just a few clips. This essentially adds 1 mpg extra. So again, it's there for aerodynamics, but it also just makes the truck look horrible, especially if you do plan to do off-roading, for example. So my recommendation, most owners will probably take them off. You have some radar sensors here for the Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, which is now standard equipment across the board. And unlike something like the Toyota or the Chevy Colorado, all Tacomas come with those LED headlights, even the base SR trim. So I like the fact that Toyota is kind of improving the tech, improving the look of this truck, even on the lower end scale. Now moving around the side profile, because this is built on the new TNGA-F architecture, this is an all new frame based on what the Tundra also has. The Tacoma has grown slightly. Now this model here that I'm showing you is a double cab with the 5-foot bed. This is the configuration that most people tend to buy. Toyota will still offer an extra cab, which is basically an extended cab that gives you a little bit of storage behind the rear seats, or behind the front seats, I'm sorry. That model will come with a 6-foot bed. You can still get a 6-foot bed on the double cab. So that's what makes the Tacoma unique. Most competitors have gone to basically a 5-foot bed, which isn't quite as useful if you actually plan to do truck things. But in terms of the overall length, 213 inches long for this model here. It's about 0.8 inches longer than the prior generation. Its wheelbase, however, has been stretched by around 4.5 inches at 132 inches long. That essentially is supposed to give this truck more interior space, but it doesn't really have that, as we show you later. The truck is also around 3 inches wider than the prior generation and almost 4 inches taller. So this definitely gives you more presence. It gives you more of a baby Tundra look. Now let me show you guys the wheels. On this particular model here, Toyota offers a choice between a 17-inch Steely up to an 18-inch wheel. You can see the TRD Sport that we're showing you here has a unique finish on the street-oriented tires, where it's a 265 by 65 R18. It's a general grabber street tire. As you can see, the wheels are unique to the TRD Sport. It's a 6-lug system. The brake rotors measure 13.2 inches in the front, 12.2 inches in the rear. If you guys go for the hybrid models, you'll actually have an inch bigger, larger rear rotors. And if you guys are keeping score, Toyota has finally gotten rid of the drum brakes that you had on all Tacomas in the prior generation. There's an independent front suspension, and this model here should have a little over 9 inches of ground clearance. The highest ground clearance Toyota says is around 11.5 inches on something like the TRD Pro model. Now you can see over here, mirrors are body colored. There's no integrated turn signals, no camera on this model here. You can get that as an option package. My tester here does have a sunroof. Toyota offers a sunroof as an option, but they do not offer a panoramic style sunroof. You can see no chrome trim along the belt line, which is nice. Instead, you kind of just have some matte black plastic look. And then the rear suspension of the Tacoma is still a live axle, but if you guys go for the upper trims like this model and up, you'll actually get a coil spring rear suspension, a multi-link design that's still a live axle as opposed to the leaf spring. The leaf springs are going to be limited to the SR, SR5, and the new pre-runner trim, which we haven't seen a pre-runner since the 2nd generation Tacoma. And now looking at the rear here, you can see there's a TRD Sport badge to show off that you've got the sportier looking Tacoma. And then looking at the rear here, I really see a lot of influence from the new Tundra, especially with the taillights. These are a full LED design for the taillights. The limited trim will also give you a sequential LED turn signal at the back. You can see Tacoma is kind of stamped out in the actual tailgate very boldly, along with a 4x4 badge. And then this right here, you can see integrated tow hitch, right, of course. And then this is now for a hydraulic or for a lift. So this is where you can actually lift up the truck here. It gives you 2 mounting points back here, which is nice. There's also a spare tire mounted underneath here, which is great. And then talking about the bed capacity, first of all, just like on the Tundra, Toyota does offer a new button here on the side, which this one is lacking, where you can actually push this in. It'll open up the tailgate. Without it, you kind of open it up manually. It is a damped tailgate, as you can see. Toyota does offer a power opening and closing tailgate on the higher trim, so that's a really great feature to have. I don't think any other truck, midsize truck in the segment actually offers that, but you can see my tester here with the 5-foot bed. It looks like it has a composite drop-in bed liner. You can also get a spray-in bed liner. There is the option to get an actual power outlet in here. This one is missing it. It does have the LED lighting and some toe-down hooks and whatnot, where you can secure your cargo. In terms of the payload capacity, this one here should be at around 1,700 pounds of payload. Again, the low end is around 1,300, the high end is around 1,700, which is useful, but for those of you who need to carry a little more stuff, you may want to consider going for the 6-foot bed. So now let's move on to the interior of this all-new 4th generation Tacoma. First of all, let me first get inside this truck. Without running boards, I have to say, it does make for a little bit of a step in for shorter folks like myself. So you can get a running board, of course, as an accessory, or the Limited has the power deploying running boards. But once I get in, you can see shut the door. The door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. And let me actually show you guys the key fob here, because for 2024, all Tacomas actually come standard with the company's smart key access system with push button start. Even the base SR model, you can see it has your usual buttons here for lock, unlock. No remote open for the tailgate, because this model here is lacking the power liftgate. You also, or power tailgate. You also have a panic function here, and Toyota does offer a function where you can use your phone as a key, a digital key on the higher trims. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see start stop button is right here. Because this is a TRD, it's a red accented button. And this model here that we're driving is not the hybrid version, so it has a traditional starter noise for that 2.4 liter direct injection 4-cylinder. And as you can see as well, the TRD Sport has its own unique interior design to it. Now, let me first talk about the seats of this model. Now, you can see my tester has the standard cloth seats. It's kind of like a gray, I think they called it Boulder and black Softex. So Boulder, I'm assuming, is probably the lighter portion. The seats have some contrasting stitching, and there's also 3-level heated seats. The seats are also manually adjusting in 4 different ways. You can get the TRD Sport with a Softex leather seat, which is a fake leather, with a power seat as well. That's part of a premium package that my tester is missing. But these seats, for cloth, I have to say they feel durable. They feel really comfortable and supportive. I'll have to wait until I get one for a week to test to try it out on longer trips. But looking at the rest of this interior, I do also want to point out that this model is a pre-production version, which means there are some pieces in here that aren't going to be factory spec. Mainly it's going to be around the door panel here. You can see the upper door panel has this kind of very shiny, cheap looking plastic. This is not going to be a final production model, so I'll have to wait until I get one for a week to test to show you guys that. Down here you can see it's nice and padded. It provides a nice little shelf where you can easily rest your arm across. Window controls are automatic one touch for actually all 4, which is nice to see on this trim. There's a little bit of door pocket storage here on the upper and on the lower portion. And then there's also some TRD badging to let you know that you do have the TRD Sport trim level, along with some of the blue accents, which kind of matches the exterior color of this truck. Now, looking at the steering wheel, you can see this steering wheel is essentially taken off of the new Tundra. It has some faux stitching on the airbag cover. It has your buttons here to control the digital gauge display for your Toyota Safety Sense 3.0. The steering wheel itself has a manual tilt and telescoping ability, but I have to say, I wanted it to adjust a little bit higher up for me. So try this out for yourself and see if it works out for you. The seats do have, again, that 4-way manual adjustability with the height adjustment, so I can get, for the most part, a comfortable driving position. No paddle shifters, however, on the wheel. I expected the TRD Sport to have that feature. I'm not entirely sure if the hybrid Max engines will have that. The horn, it sounds nondescript, but at least it doesn't sound puny. And then looking at the rest of the dashboard materials here, you can see hard touch plastic materials here in the upper portion. I do like again, the body colored accents here where it spells out Tacoma. The glove box door here is not padded, it's just kind of hard. And then you can see over here in the center stack, this is where the Tacoma got a huge upgrade in terms of technology. Now, my tester here has an optional, it's part of a standalone option package, the 14-speaker Toyota Audio Multimedia Interface. This is part of their new Toyota Connected Services app system, and as you can see, compared to the old Tacoma, which topped out at an 8-inch display, you can still get an 8-inch display. That's the standard screen. This 14-inch display dominates the dash. It provides really large icons. You can see all your different sources very well. You can go back to the Toyota main system here where all your different sources are on the left side here. It does have factory embedded GPS where it's a cloud connected services app system. Most of you will end up using the CarPlay anyways. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your big backup camera. I love how it takes up the entire screen itself. Toyota does offer a surround view camera system, part of that premium package. My tester is missing it. As you can see, it does have trajectory and parking sensors, which is nice, and it should have rear cross traffic braking as well. Down over here, you can see you have single zone automatic climate control. Some of the upper trims, I believe, have dual zone. You can also get cooled seats on the Tacoma. That's available when you go for the premium package, which gives the Softex. You got heated and ventilated seats. That's standard on the limited trim. You can see there's another big knob here, big knob there for your volume controls, and then actual physical controls for your AC controls. And then down here, you can see there are 2 USB-C charging ports. This is strictly for charging, and then you also have a wireless phone charging pad here for your phone, along with this actual shifter that controls the 8-speed auto. If you don't want to use the wireless CarPlay function, there is another USB port here to the side. That's the USB port you'll want to use to connect your phone directly as opposed to using the wireless. Most of you will probably end up using the wireless anyways. Coming back to the center stack here, you can see you have an electronic parking brake. You have a big knob here that controls your drive mode selector. Toyota offers a choice between either Eco, Normal, or Sport. I suspect other trims will have more drive modes. You can also find a switch here to control the 4-wheel drive system. It's a part-time 4-wheel drive system where you have 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low. There is no automatic setting. Toyota does offer that on the top of the line limited trim. There's also a bunch of empty buttons here, which some of them will control the sway bar disconnect, the rear locking diff, all of which is not on this TRD Sport trim, which is why all the empty buttons. You have cup holders here, a somewhat padded center console area here that covers up the storage, which as you can see, it's a decent size. It could be a little bit deeper. No power outlets in here. It's all located over there in the upper portion of the center console. And then above me here, you can see there is that moonroof option, which I'm not entirely sure what this costs, but it is a standalone option, or you could just get the premium package where it's rolled in. There's some woven material for the headliner. You can see the map lights are LED. There is an LED lighting in the cabin, but I'll have to wait until I have one for a week to test out and see what it looks like at night. And then of course the glove compartment, you can see it has a lid that's stamped but not lined with felt. It's kind of going into the dash. It's actually a pretty big glove compartment along with some additional storage here. So overall, the interior of the new Tacoma takes a lot of touches from the new Tundra, which is a great thing. Love the new display here, which is the largest in the segment. I love all the additional storage. I love the comfortable seats, and you also have great visibility throughout. And for those of you who want even more tech, be sure to check out the Limited, where you can get features like a digital camera review mirror and even more upscale touches in terms of the materials. Now the double cab configuration is the most popular choice among consumers, so let's go ahead and take a look at the back seat space. Now, Toyota did add around 4.5 inches to the wheelbase, and you would think that they would give you 4.5 more inches of legroom back here. But as you can see, sadly, they did not. Toyota says you have around 33.6 inches of legroom back here, which is about an inch more versus the prior generation. This is where I had the seat to drive. It doesn't look like that much space. I'll get it in just a second, but let me show you guys some of the versatility back here. Now, as you can see, there's a bench back here. You can lift this up if you'd like to show all this underfloor storage. If you want to secure the seat, there's actually a little bit of like a strap over here that you have to push in that has a little clip. That's pretty standard stuff. You can also fold down this seat here by basically just pulling on that little strap that folds down that seat, where you have access to the jack if you need to actually change out your spare tire. But overall, as you can see, nothing really super fancy with some of the versatility back here. This model here doesn't even have the rear window that slides open. I wish Toyota would offer the full roll down window that you can get on the Tundra, but sadly it is not on the new Tacoma. But let me go ahead and get back here and show you guys the space. Now, as you can see, once I get back in here, this is where I'd have the seat to drive, and with 33.6 inches of legroom, I have to say this is pretty tight even for somebody my height. My knees, as you can see, aren't up against the seat, but there is some under seat area for my foot or for my feet, but it feels very, very tight. So if you guys are looking for more space, obviously you want to go look at a Tundra, look at a full-size truck. Back here you can see it has the same kind of not production spec for the plastics, so I can't talk about that. Same thing over here as well, so we won't talk about that because this is a early pre-production truck. No rear seat armrests here, which would be nice, honestly, considering this truck is wide, but fitting 3 across, it's doable, but definitely not so much like the full-size trucks. You can see there's a cup holder over here. You have 2 USB-C charging areas. It looks like right here could be an actual power outlet if you had the option for it. No rear seat air vents, and then down here you can see just one storage cubby, so keep that in mind. For the lower trims, you are gypped a little bit in terms of rear seat features, but overall, as you can see, the headroom space is nice because even though the sunroof takes up some room, they've carved out this area here, so if you're over 6 feet tall, you should be okay on headroom, but just know legroom is still among the smallest in the class. So here we are finally driving the all-new 4th generation Toyota Tacoma. This is seriously such an important vehicle for Toyota. It has consistently been the best-selling mid-size truck in the segment in the US for a few years now, and it's pretty easy to see why. So for this all-new version, Toyota has basically pulled out all the stops. We've got an all-new frame, all-new engines, all-new interior, and it really shows when you first get into this model. Now we're back in, of course, the TRD Sport. This has the 2.4-liter turbo 4-cylinder with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and right off the bat I'm noticing it has so much more low-end torque versus that V6. The old V6, you had to rev the crap out of the engine all the time to get it to accelerate, which made the truck feel lethargic. This new one here has so much mid-range torque. It basically gives you all the power, 317 pound-feet under 4,000 RPM. And it feels good. The engine itself also has that kind of like burly, noise that's a little bit augmented, which I think is a good thing because it helps the engine sound or feel a little bit less terrible compared to other 4 cylinders. But for those of you who preferred the V6 sound, you may end up missing it. But what you won't miss, however, is the fact that the V6 required you to rev the crap out of it, and it also had a 6-speed auto that was just really lethargic. It didn't really feel well matched to the engine, and it was really slow shifting. This new 8-speed is way more responsive. Anytime I put my foot down, it just feels peppy. It puts the engine right in the meat of the power band, and it just gives this truck a much more, quicker and less taxed feeling compared to the old engine. Now, the rest of the truck's handling dynamics, this is an all-new frame. We are driving the TRD Sport, which is good because we're on this like curvier back road or mountain road here. And we should be able to test out the new chassis where this truck definitely feels a lot more stiffer, but stiffer in a good way because the chassis feels a lot more solid. The ride quality is still pretty much what I expect for a truck. However, this model does have the new coil spring multi-link suspension in the rear. It's not independent, it's still a live axle, but it definitely feels better. The steering is now electrically assisted. The old Tacoma had hydraulic steering. They've gone electric, of course, for all the new safety features that this truck has. And I have to say, it's perfectly acceptable. I think it's pretty good. But, this is a somewhat straight road. We are going downhill. Let me go ahead and see what we can do 0 to 60 wise right now. We'll put it into sport mode here. We'll brake torque it. Now, that was 6.2 seconds, and that's with it going very downhill. So we'll try it again going the other direction and see what the time gets, and then we'll just kind of average the two out. It's always tough to find a good place to do a 0 to 60. If we see one that's on a more flat surface, we'll try it again. But compared to the old Tacoma, which I actually never had a chance to 0 to 60 test that truck, this is probably significantly, it's gonna be probably a second faster, but I'll wait until I can find another stretch of road where we can test it out again. But as you can see, I've left the transmission in sport mode, and it's still kind of holding the gears, which is a good thing because it's giving you that additional power that you're looking for. But let's go ahead and try it here. This looks a little bit more straight. There's another new Tacoma that's driving right by. That was nice, okay. All right, 7.2 seconds there, and that's like a 1% downhill gradient. So that's pretty close. Honestly, 7-ish seconds is where I was expecting it to be, considering I've tested this powertrain in other Toyota products. And that number is pretty much matching the last number that I got in a Chevrolet Colorado with its 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder and some other competitors with a V6. The last time I tested the Frontier, which still has a 3.8 liter V6, it was also pretty similar in time. So finally, Toyota has given the Tacoma the power that it needs, and it feels a lot more just punchy compared to the prior generation. It should feel, it should give you enough power for those of you who plan to tow, who plan to off-road. The 8-speed, as you guys saw in sport mode, it does downshift a little bit more eagerly for you. You can switch the drive mode here. I'll go ahead and I'll switch it to the normal setting, which is how most people are going to drive it. And the transmission is going to start hunting a little bit more, get you into that higher gear to get you better fuel efficiency. But the cloth seats that I'm sitting in this model here, I usually don't like cloth seats, but I have to say it feels nice. These seats don't feel super scratchy. They have a nice comfortable feel to them. Not really much in terms of bolstering. If you guys want the really aggressive isodynamic seats, that's on the TRD Pro model, which basically gives you its own suspension in the actual seat. As we go up this hill here, you can feel, I just put my foot down a little bit and this truck just accelerates with authority. It's impressive to me how this 2.4 has just transformed this truck, which by the way, this engine, Toyota says, has around 50% new parts compared to the engines that you'll find mounted transversely in some of the SUV and car products. But overall, visibility is pretty good. The Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 is standard, so you get adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, all that stuff that you expect in a modern truck is included in here. And in terms of the noise, the engine does make a little bit of noise. It's augmented, but it also is relatively quiet by truck standards. Let me put my foot down here, start spinning the back tires a little bit. But I have no complaints. This engine to me is much more refined versus the 4-cylinder in the Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon. So I like the fact that Toyota was thinking about that when they were designing this truck. It just feels a lot more usable, and it feels a lot more less thrashy, basically. This is the competitors. But here we go. Here's a little bit more level road. Let's see what we can get in this little run. We'll brake torque it. 6.6 there, and that's with it still going downhill. That's actually showing a 5% downhill gradient. So we'll take the 7.2. That's probably the more realistic time. I'll have to wait until I get one for a full week to test when I get back home. I'll be very curious to drive, of course, the iForce Max with the hybrid powertrain sometime in the spring. I suspect that model will probably be almost a second faster versus this model. But overall, for those of you who've been holding out for the new Tacoma, you're going to find significantly improved road manners, much better seat comfort as well, much better technology, improved acceleration. Can't comment quite yet on the fuel efficiency, but overall I think that this TRD Sport model, for those of you who just plan to drive this more as a daily driver out on the road, you're going to find plenty to like with this new Tacoma. All right, 9.25 seconds.
Wonder why.
So we obviously managed to switch into the Tacoma with the manual transmission. This is a 6-speed manual with active rev matching. I'll see if I can try another 0 to 60 time. I may eventually just have Rob do it at some point because I'm not used to driving a manual with a truck. And I have to say, it's nice that Toyota offers a manual. This is my first time driving this 2.4 engine with a manual. This is the only combination or vehicle that Toyota offers a stick with this engine, with this powertrain combination. So the manual itself is essentially kind of like an updated version of the one that was in the old Tacoma. I believe they did add the active rev matching. It is a truck manual, which means you've got these long rubbery throws that doesn't like to be hurried. You've got a clutch that is very, very, very vague and you can't really feel where it engages. But for those of you who want to stick in your pickup truck, the Tacoma is one of the few that offers it. The only other truck that offers a manual is the Gladiator, and the Gladiator is more of a lifestyle truck. This is an actual truck. We're in a TRD Sport with the 2.4 turbo, which means you've got 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. The manual itself definitely changes the character a lot of this truck. I mean, obviously you have more control versus the 8-speed, but I was pretty pleased with the 8-speed automatic. Now when I put it into second here, you can feel, whoops, I actually over-revved it a little bit there. I'm surprised it actually let me go into second there. Rob, quit judging me.
Mouth is sealed over here.
But you know what? The engine was fine there, so the rev match does work pretty nicely, but you have to keep in mind this is a truck engine, so it's got a very low 5,200 RPM rev limiter. And you don't really need to rev this engine out that much. It's got plenty of mid-range torque down low, so you just kind of have to let it get right into between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM, and the truck just feels pretty quick. Let's try it here one more time. I'll do a less aggressive clutch dump this time. You definitely have to go into third to get to 60 for this thing. 7.97 seconds, so that's actually not bad. We did do a 0 to 60 run in the automatic on this same stretch. And you know what? I suspected the 8-speed would be faster, and obviously that's the case because it requires you to go into third gear to get to 60 for this truck. It's all about the gear ratio and the spacing. But I'd probably say when I can get one back home for a week to test, the time difference will likely be a half a second, which when you buy a manual, it's gonna obviously be the slower option. But for those of you who want that control, it's great to see that Toyota definitely still offers a manual, and they offer it with basically all the tech. Like this model here has the premium package, it's the TRD Sport. It looks great on the outside. On the inside, we've got heated and ventilated seats, dual zone climate control, 360 camera, a heated steering wheel. So for those of you who want a manual with a fully loaded spec'd out truck, the Tacoma definitely will help you out there by offering this combination. So with Toyota roughly selling about 250,000 new Tacomas in America every year, this is literally the best-selling mid-size truck in the US. It outsells pretty much every other competitor out there, and with new competition from Ford, from GM, from Nissan, and from Jeep with the refreshed Gladiator, it's pretty easy to see why Toyota needed to give the Tacoma a full redesign this year. The last new one that we saw was back in 2015. After spending some time with the all-new 4th generation model, it's clear that Toyota did play it safe, but they also did push the envelope a little bit. Sadly, I wish I was able to drive the hybrid powertrain today, but we're gonna have to wait until the spring of next year to finally get our hands on the hybrid. That's when the hybrid will be going on sale in the late spring. But as you guys saw, the powertrain upgrades for that 2.4 liter turbo have made a huge difference, because the old Tacoma, I always remember, had a really wheezy feeling V6 that had some interesting sounds, but you had to rev the crap out of it. And it also had a lethargic 6-speed automatic that just didn't work in terms of everyday driving for me. The truck always felt underpowered. This new turbo engine, however, delivers all of that delicious mid-range torque at a much lower RPM, and it feels very diesel-like. You heard some of the turbo whistle noises under the hood. This thing also felt a lot faster in rear-wheel driving, which is going to matter for a lot of enthusiasts or just regular consumers out there. And in terms of the fuel efficiency, we'll have to wait until we get one back home for a week to test out the fuel economy. It did go up by about 3 mpg compared to the old V6, which again is a win-win. I suspect the hybrid will probably end up going even higher in terms of the mpg as well. In terms of the ride quality, I think Toyota has also done a great job with improving the ride quality with that new coil spring design for the rear suspension. It's still a truck, obviously, so it's not going to be, you know, the ride quality of a Lexus, but I think Toyota has made this truck much more livable. I wish that they gave this thing more interior space on the inside, but I also love the new infotainment system. That 14-inch display is just a game changer. It makes this truck, again, feel much more modern, and it's one of my most favorite features of this all-new Tacoma. But if you guys are looking to get your hands on the new version of the Tacoma, they are heading to dealer showrooms in December, so basically next month. You can go ahead and pick one of these up. You're going to have to wait until the hybrid, or you're going to have to wait until the spring, again, of next year to get your hands on the hybrid. And Toyota has announced pricing. This model here, or not this model, the base SR with the extra cab and 2-wheel drive will start at $31,500. It's before destination. That makes the new Tacoma about $3,000 more expensive versus the prior generation. A worthy upcharge considering all the additional tech, the additional power that the Tacoma gives you. If you guys want 4-wheel drive, that's going to cost you about $3,000 extra. If you guys want an SR5 trim, that's going to be in the $38,000 to $40,000 price range. SR5 is going to make up the majority of sales. This TRD Sport trim that I'm showing you with the double cab configuration with the 5-foot bed starts at around $42,600. If you guys want the off-road version, it's around $300 more. If you want the longer bed, the 6-foot bed, it's only around $500 more. Toyota didn't have final pricing on the option packages that my tester has here, so we don't know what the final MSRP is. But if you guys want a fully loaded limited, that's going to be a little over $52,000 plus destination and plus any other options. The limited does give you also the adaptive variable suspension. It's the only Tacoma to give you the adaptive dampers. So overall, this model here, let's just go ahead and say around $45,000 is smack right in the middle of all of the other mid-size trucks out there. The fully loaded limited is going to be in the low $50,000 range, which again is pretty expensive, but I'd argue that Toyota has really done a lot here to justify that cost. The additional technology, the style, the additional power, the extra efficiency. Technically, it doesn't really have that much more capability, but Toyota says that if you plan to do a lot of towing, they've got a Tundra anyways. Tacoma owners, they claim, don't necessarily tow all the time. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Toyota Tacoma. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.